Kia ora koutou katoa. First century Palestine was not unusual in that it was colonized by an empire. Colonize is what empires do, and still do. And empires colonize not to display their altruism and beneficence, although there can be a trickle here or there, but to increase their affluence, influence, and thus their power. Empires colonize by physically conquering, taking and using, and then repressing dissent. They also colonize by invading the minds of the colonized, by changing what is perceived as normal. Part of this is imposing a culture, usually including a religion, a language, and a new hierarchy. It's all about control, and control for the purpose of profit. Empire culture is a top-down pyramidal system. Discriminatory in terms of race, the colonizers proclaim themselves as superior. In terms of gender, men over women, and in terms of age, children have few, if any, rights in most empires. All such discrimination was said to be self-evident or natural. Wherever empires colonize, they produce little pyramids, with a patriarch on top, followed by sons, wives, daughters, then slaves. Also, race, gender, and age prioritize. Animals and the physical environment. Animals and the physical environment, being on the bottom of the pyramid, are treated as if they have no rights. They exist purely to serve the wishes of this human pyramidal system, and particularly those on top, who are profiting the most. Note, to give the likes of animals, trees, and rivers rights is to wobble, to destabilize the whole system. A successful empire is one where it not only plunders what it wills, but the plundered come to believe they are inferior, and the values and ways of the empire superior. You may recall Steve Biko, murdered by the South African police during the apartheid era, who led the Black Consciousness movement. One of his key slogans was, "Black is beautiful." He wrote, "Black consciousness seeks to infuse the black community with a newfound pride in themselves, their efforts, their value systems, their culture, their religion, and their outlook to life." In other words, he and his colleagues were refuting the ideology of the white colonizers that many blacks had interiorized about who was superior and who was inferior. Jesus tried to do the same. Indeed, Judaism in Jesus' time, as a religion of the colonized, also tried to do the same. The reading this morning with "whoever welcomes or receives a child welcomes and receives both Jesus and God" is anti-pyramidal talk. As is the phrase elsewhere, "unless you become as a child," and the well-known first and last reversal. The greatest, the most powerful, according to these texts, are not those who see the pyramid upside down. The greatest are those who do see the pyramid upside down and prepared to live committed to righting the world downside up. Dom Crossan, in his Jesus, a Revolutionary biography, links the receiving a child to a debate in some early Jesus groups about what to do about abandoned children. This refers to the practice widespread in the empire at the time of abandoning children, maybe due to their gender or the extreme poverty of their parents, or both. Jesus is said to have a Mother Teresa type perspective on this debate. If you take in an abandoned child, you are taking in God. In empire, think God the all-powerful is at the top of the pyramid. That's why Roman emperors were considered gods. So to call a street child, one without resources, rights, or patronage, God, is to put God on the bottom of the pyramid. So the first, namely God, has become among the last, the little, the least. The top, God, is really, despite what the empire and everyone else thinks, at the bottom. It's topsy-turvy religion. Of course, Christianity, which has oscillated between being a religion of the colonized and colonizers, and is now increasingly a religion of irrelevance, has long interpreted these verses as a social imperative to care for children, while at the same time not changing the fundamental structures of the economic, political, and cultural pyramids that dominate society. So we've done band-aids, like Dingle Trust, good band-aids, while our society continues to care more about wealth creation and retention than addressing the root causes of our appalling child health, well-being, and poverty statistics. But this morning I'd invite you also to consider the text's reference to a child as a symbol of the bottom tier of the pyramid. For there are others at the bottom, as well as abandoned and powerless children. I'm referring to animals and ecosystems like land, trees, and waterways. The notable English biologist and botanist who contributed greatly to worldwide reforestation projects, Richard Simbar Baker, once wrote, "You can gauge a country's wealth, its real wealth, by its tree cover." Baker is subverting, in this sentence, the empire's understanding of wealth, an understanding that's considered normative. There's a Cree wisdom saying, "Only when the last tree has died and the last river poisoned and the last fish been caught will we realize we can't eat money." But Baker is not talking about the wise stewardship of the Crees, which could be interpreted nowadays as needing to plant massive numbers of trees so that we can have a greater supply of timber, export the same, and generate more money. Rather, Baker is talking about another way, an upside-down way of understanding wealth. He's pointing to the understanding that rivers, trees, and fish exist for more than our benefit. It's not just a case of being a good steward of the land and its resources so they'll last. Rather, it's realizing the ecosystems have an intrinsic value all of their own. We need to leave behind the colonizing mindset and our normative ways of understanding wealth and work to restore and protect and revitalize these taonga treasures. So let's drop phrases like natural resources, which infers the birds, forests, and rivers exist to resource us. Let's honor them as treasures, taonga in their own right, and not for their use by us. They're not resources, but like St. Francis would have said, they are kin. So let us help our kin, our family, and do the mahi, like Baker's International Tree Foundation, and like Ngā Ringa Te Onga, Friends of Oakley Creek. and like many other restoration and rewilding groups and projects. And let us too humbly listen and learn from these tonga. For animals, trees and water have much to silently teach us as we decolonize our minds, journeying away from those pyramids of acquisition and perceptions of worth, and coming to hear the whisper called God in the wee things that are actually wondrous, mighty things. And coming to value these wee things as spiritual mentors, companions, holy texts for these times, journeying with us in conservation and restoration. Blessings to you this week.